Alright, in the last chapters, because we read two, Despero came up because Gregory had helped him back up. Excuse me, my eyes are kind of bothering me. Uh, Gregory had helped Despero back up into the castle out of the dungeon. And Midge, upon finding him, was ordered by the cook to kill him. Did she succeed? No, she cut off his tail. And he wound up hiding under the cupboard, which is, again, just a place that, food is stored. He hid under there, and he had this dream where this knight was fighting off the darkness. And when he asked the knight to fight, who was fighting off all of these terrible things in his life, who he was, when he took off the knight's helmet, there was nobody there. So Despero took this as a sign that if there is no real knight that fights off darkness, he probably will not be able to save P, and there is no happily ever after. And so he cried in his sleep. This really upset him. So now let's find out what chapter 36, What Midge Carried, has in store. And while the mouse slept, Roscuro put his terrible plan into effect. Would you like to hear, reader, how it all unfolded? The story is not a pretty one. There is violence in it, and cruelty, but stories that are not pretty have certain value too, I suppose. Everything, as you well know, having lived in this world long enough, you've probably figured out a thing or two yourself, cannot always be sweet and light. Listen, this is how it happened. First, a rat finished once and for all a job he had started long ago. He chewed through Gregory's rope, all the way through it. So, the jailer became lost in the maze of the dungeon. Later that night, when the castle was dark, the serving girl, Midgery, climbed the stairs to the princess's room. In her hand, she carried a candle, and in her pocket of her apron, two ominous things. In the right pocket, hidden in case she should encounter anyone on the stairs, was a rat with a spoon on his head and a cloak of red around his shoulders. In the left pocket, there was a kitchen knife, the same knife that Midgery Sow had used to cut off the tail of a certain mouse. These were the things, a rat and a knife and a candle, that Midge carried with her as she climbed up the stairs to the princess. "Gore," she shouted to the rat. "It's dark, ain't it?" "Yes, yes," whispered Roscuro from her pocket. "It's quite dark, my dear." "When I'm a princess," began Midge. "Shh! May I suggest that you keep your glorious plans for the future to yourself, and may I further suggest that you keep your voice down to a whisper. We are, after all, on a covert mission. Do you know how to whisper, my dear?" "Oh, I do," shouted Midge. "Then please," said Roscuro, "please institute this knowledge immediately." "Gore," whispered Midge. "All right." "Thank you," Roscuro said. "Do I need to review with you our plan of action?" "I got it straight right here in my head," whispered Midge, and she tapped the side of her head with one finger. "How comforting," said Roscuro. "Perhaps we should go over it again. One more time, just to be sure." "Well," said Midge, "we go into the princess's room, and she'll be sleeping and snoring and snoozing, and I will wake her up and show her the knife, and say, 'If you does not want to get hurt, princess, you will come with me.'" "And you will not hurt her," said Roscuro. "No, I won't, because I want her to live so that she can become my lady-in-waiting, my servant, and I will become the princess." "Exactly," said Roscuro. "That is her divine comeuppance." "Gore," whispered Midge. "Her divine comeuppance." Midge had, of course, no idea what the phrase divine comeuppance meant, but she very much liked the sound of it, and repeated it over and over to herself, until Roscuro said, "And then?" "And then," continued Midge, "I'll tells her to get out of her princess bed and come with me on a little journey." "Ha," said Roscuro, "a little journey, that's right. I love the understatement of the phrase, a little journey. Oh, it will be a little journey indeed." "And then," said Midge, who was coming to her favorite part of the plan, "I will take her to the deep downs into the dungeon, and will give her some long lessons on how to be a serving girl, and we will get some short lessons in how to be a princess for me. And when everything is studied up, we'll switch places, and I'll get to be the princess, and she'll get to be the maid. War! Reader, this was the very plan that Roscuro presented to Midge the first time he met her. It was, of course, a ridiculous plan. No one would ever, not even for one blind minute, mistake Midge the princess for Midge the serving for Princess P. But Midgery Sow, as I had pointed out to you before, was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And reader, too, she wanted so desperately to become a princess. She wanted, oh how she wanted, and it was because of this terrible wanting that she was able to believe Roscuro's plan with every ounce of her heart. The rat's real plan was in a way more simple and more terrible. He actually intended to take the princess into the deepest, darkest part of the dungeon, and he intended to have Midge put chains on the princess's hands and feet, and he intended to keep the glittering, glowing princess in the dark forever. Chapter 37, A Small Taste. She was asleep, and she was dreaming of her mother, the queen, who was holding a spoon to her and saying, "Taste this, my sweet pea, taste this, my darling, and tell me what you think." The princess leaned forward and sipped some soup from her mother, and who held it out to her. "Oh, Mamma," she said, "it's wonderful. It's the best soup I've ever eaten." "Yes," said Queen, "isn't it wonderful?" "May I have some more?" said the pea. "I gave you a small taste so that you would not forget," said her mother. "I'll give you a small taste so that you'll remember. But I want more." But as soon as the princess said this, her mother was gone. She disappeared into the bowl and with the soup spoon, and it disappeared along with her. "Lost things," said the pea, "more lost things." And then she heard her name. She turned, happily thinking it was her mother who had come back. But the voice was not her mother's. The voice belonged to somebody else, and it was coming from someplace far, far away, and it was telling her to wake up, wake up. The pea opened her eyes and saw Midgery Sow standing over her bed with a knife in one hand and a candle in the other. "Midge?" she said. "Gore," said Midge softly. "Say it," commanded Roscoe. Midge closed her eyes and shouted her piece. "If you does not want to get hurt, princess, you will come with me." "Whatever for?" said the princess in an annoyed tone. As I had noted before, the princess was not a person who was used to being told what to do. "What are you talking about?" Midge opened her eyes and shouted, "You got to come with me, so after we can take some lessons, and you can take some lessons, and I will become the princess, and so you will be coming with me." "No!" shouted Roscuro. "No, no! You're doing it wrong." "Who said that?" "Your Highness," said Roscuro, and he crawled out of Midge's pocket and made his way to her shoulder and situated himself there, laying his tail across her neck to balance himself. "Your Highness," he said again, and he raised the spoon off of his head and smiled, displaying a mouthful of hideous teeth. "I think it would be best if you do as Midgery Sow suggests. She is, as you can quite clearly see, in possession of a large knife, and she will, if she be pushed, use it." "This is ridiculous," said the princess. "You can't threaten me. I'm a princess." "Well," said Roscuro, "are you all too aware of the fact that what you are? We are all aware of what you are. A knife, however, cares nothing of the fact that you are royalty, and you will bleed, I assume, just like any other human." The pea looked at Midge, and Midge smiled. The knife glinted in the light of the candle. "Midge," she said, her voice shaking the tiniest bit. "I really do not think," said Roscuro, "that Midge needs much persuasion to use that knife, princess. She is a dangerous individual, easily led." "But we're friends," said the pea. "Aren't we, Midge?" "Eh?" said Midge. "Trust me," said Roscuro, "you are not friends. And I think it would be best if you addressed your communications to me, princess. I'm the one in charge here. Look at me." The pea looked directly at the rat and the spoon on his head. Her heart skipped a beat. "Do you know me, princess?" "No," she said, lowering her head. "I don't know you." But reader, she did know him. That was the rat who had fallen into her mother's soup. He was wearing her dear mother's spoon on his head. The princess kept her head down. She concentrated on containing the rage that was leaping up inside her. Look again, princess, or can you not bear to look? This is the pain your royal sensibilities led to. Your eyes rest on a rat. I don't know you, she said, and I'm not afraid to look at you. The pea raised her head slowly. Her eyes were defiant. She stared at the rat. Very well, said Roscuro. Have it your way. You don't need to know me. Nonetheless, you must do as I say. And as my friend here said, with a knife. So get out of bed, princess. We're going on a little journey. And I would like you dressed in your loveliest gown, the one you were wearing at the banquet not so long ago. And put on your crown, said Midge. Put on your princess head. Yes, said Roscuro. Please, princess, don't forget your crown. The pea was staring at Roscuro, pushed the covers back, and got out of bed. Move quickly, said Roscuro. We must take our little journey while it's dark and while the rest of the castle sleeps. Ignorant, oh so ignorant, I'm afraid, of your fate. The princess took a gown from her closet. Yes, said Roscuro to himself, that's the one. The very one. Look how it sparkles in the light. Lovely. I'll need someone to do my buttons, said the princess as she stepped into the dress. Midge, you must help me. Oh, princess, said Roscuro, do you think you can outsmart a rat? Oh, dear Midge Rousseau will not lay a knife down, not even for a moment. Will you, Midge Rousseau? Because that might ruin our chances of you becoming the princess. Isn't that right? Of course, said Midge, that's right. And so, while Midge had the knife pointed in the direction of the Princess P sat and let the rat crawl over her back, doing her buttons one by one. The princess held very still. The only moment she allowed herself was this. She licked her lips over and over because she thought she could taste the sweet saltiness of the soup that her mother had fed her in her dream. I have not forgotten, Mamma, she whispered. I will not forget you, and I have not forgotten soup. So now we know the plan. We have the whole plan down. They gave us the plan. So if your plan was close, you could give yourself a pat on the back. But if it wasn't, it doesn't matter because there's no way you could have guessed that. And we don't have much more book left, to be very honest. This is, we're coming right to the end. We have, almost nothing left. These pages here are just other books that we could read. But this right here is all that's left of our book. So we have just a little bit to see what happens next. And on that note, we will see you later. Bye-bye.